This is your host, Selah-Shalom, and this is the Cosmon teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible, OAHSPE. And the topic of discussion today is called Decoding the Spiritual System of Ancient Egypt. Now, in this vid, I will be explaining the root of the Egyptian spiritual belief system among the Nile Valley civilization. There is a universal spiritual belief system among the ancient Egyptians, which was supposed to be upheld. This spiritual belief system is the blueprint for the Nile Valley civilization at that time. And once you understand the blueprint of anything first, everything else falls in place. Now, what is the ancient Egyptian spiritual belief system? When we observe the papyrus of Hanifa around 1375 BC, we see the blueprint of the ancient Egyptian spiritual belief system. Along with Ptolemy IV, 1100 years later, you see the same belief system being carried out, showing you that this is the foundation. Now, what I'm going to explain is based off what is accepted among Egyptologists. So if you have any problems with the translation, take it up with the translators. Now, when we look at this papyrus, we are looking at the judgment of Maat. Now, let me explain the individuals first before I go into the actual breakdown of this spiritual belief system. First, the Egyptians believed in what is called the Ura and the Duat, which is basically to summon up your heaven and hell. Ura is called the fields of reeds or the fields of rush, and is represented as the heavenly paradise where Osiris dwells in the Neteru. And then you got the Duat, which is the underworld, and that is for those who hasn't passed the laws of Maat. As we all know, Maat represents balance, justice, and truth. And here on this papyrus, she is represented as a scale. And her feather that she is wearing represents truth and is placed on one of the weighing scales. Above you have the judges of Maat. And then you have Anubis. Next to Anubis is the Amit. Next you have Thoth. And then you have the spirit of the deceased being Hanifa, led by Haru. Then you have Osiris, and behind him is the two goddesses. Now I'm going to start from left to right and explain the process or proceeding of how the spiritual system works. First you have Hanifa, represented as a spirit, holding the hand of Anubis, bringing him into the judgment hall of Maat. The purpose of him coming is to be judged for his deeds during his physical life. And you can see the same thing with Ptolemy IV, doing the same proceedings. Next you have Anubis, who sets up the scale for judgment. The scale represents Maat. The feather represents truth and is placed on one of the scales, while the heart represents the deeds of the individual during their physical life. And in this case, Hanifa's heart is placed on the other scale, and this determines the weighing of the scale. And then you have the Amit, which is that creature you see sitting next to Anubis. And this creature is there to devour the heart or deeds of the individual if his heart or deeds are not balanced with the feather of Maat. The Amit was not to be worshipped but feared by the Egyptians as a sign of not keeping the laws of Maat. Now above you have the 42 judges. Each of the 42 judges represents each of the 42 negative confessions. And the spirit of the deceased, being Hanifa, has to pass through each and every judge and confess the negative confessions of Maat to each judge. Now, as he passed through the 42 judges, Thoth is responsible for recording the confessions in order to determine the weighing of the scale of Maat. If his heart or deeds are balanced, then he will be led by Haru to Osiris and enter into the Ura. Which is the field of rush, or the fields of reeds, basically a heavenly paradise. If his heart or deeds are not balanced, and he will be devoured by the Amit and cease to exist. Now here are some references from the papyrus of Enna, where Enna, an individual, passes the judgment of Maat. From the papyrus of Enna, from the speech of Horus to Osiris, introducing Enna to him, it states, "His heart is righteous, and it hath come forth from the balance. It hath not sinned against any god or any goddess. Thought hath weighed it according to the decree pronounced unto him by the company of gods, and it was most true and righteous. Grant though that cakes and ale may be given unto him, and let him appear in the presence of the god Osiris, and let him be like unto the followers of Horus forever and ever." So here this papyrus explains, after passing the 42 judges of Maat, you are to appear in the presence of Osiris for the next step. And in the papyrus of Enna, from the speech of Enna, it states, "Behold, I'm in thy presence, O Lord, of Amentet, the west. There is no sin in my body. I have not spoken that which is not true knowingly, nor have I done anything with a false heart. Grant though that I may be like unto those favored ones who are in thy following, and that I may be an Osiris, greatly favored of the beautiful God, and beloved of the Lord of the two lands. I who am a veritable scribe who loveth thee, Anna, whose word is true before the God Osiris." So here you have Enna speaking in the presence of Osiris after passing the judgment about to be run in the presence of the Neteru, the god. Now this is the blueprint and root of the Egyptian spiritual belief system. So anyone born coming out the Nile Valley, whether it be a pharaoh or a typical worker, their responsibility is to live up to the laws of Maat in order to be one with Osiris and the other Neterus in the afterlife. Now, what I did, I went through the 42 confessions of Maat and chose only 12 confessions to prove my next point, which is going to be unrefutable when I put it in perspective. Now here are the 12 confessions. I have not committed sin. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain man or woman. I have not stolen anyone's land. I have not terrorized anyone. I have not been exclusively angry. I have not behaved with violence. I have not caused disruption of peace. I have not worked evil. I have not used evil thoughts, words, or deeds. I have not destroyed property belonging to gods and goddesses. Now these are the 12 confessions I'm going to use to prove that a great majority of the pharaohs did not live up to Maat. The first pharaoh to break the law of Maat is Narmer, the very first pharaoh responsible for uniting Upper and Lower Egypt. Now when we observe the Narmer's palette, we see Narmer holding the hair of an unarmed man with one hand and holding a club about to strike that unarmed man with the other hand. And below Narmer's feet, you see two men on the ground laying dead. And on the back of the Narmer's palette, you see people with chopped off heads laying between their legs. Now when we observe the fourth law of Maat, it states, "I have not slain men or women." And here we can clearly see Narmer is in the process of slaying a man, breaking the fourth law of Maat. Now the 23rd law of Maat states, "I have not terrorized anyone." And again, you can clearly see that this man is being terrorized by Narmer, breaking the 23rd law of Maat. And the 25th law of Maat states, "I have not been exclusively angry." As you can see, Narmer appears to be very angry in order to be smiting somebody upside the head. Now the 27th law of Maat is, "I have not behaved with violence." Again, we can see this is a violent act by Narmer against this unarmed man. And the 28th law of Maat states, "I have not caused disruption of peace." As we look again, this is clearly a disruption of peace for those victims being slaughtered off by Narmer and whoever else participated with Narmer. Now being that we have proven that Narmer broke several laws of Maat, his heart or deeds would be unbalanced on the scale of Maat. And what happens to any person whose heart is not balanced on the scale of Maat? That's right, your heart will be devoured by the Amit. You just can't pass a couple of the laws of Maat, you have to pass all 42 laws of Maat. The next pharaoh to break the laws of Maat is Hor-Ah of the Old Kingdom, where you can see pictures from his tomb showing bound people under his reign, or during his reign. Now, when we look at the 23rd law of Maat, it states, I have not terrorized anyone. Obviously, these people are being terrorized. The 28th law of Maat states, I have not caused disruption of peace. Again, it's obvious these brothers have been disrupted from peace based off looking at their condition. Now, the next Pharaoh that broke the laws of Maat is Den, another Pharaoh of the Old Kingdom, where you can clearly see him smiting a person. Again, when we observe the 4th Maat law, it states, I have not slain man or woman. Here we can clearly see this Pharaoh Den from the Old Kingdom is in the process of slaying a man, breaking the 4th law of Maat. Along with the 23rd law of Maat, I have not terrorized anyone. In the 25th law, I have not been exclusively angry. In the 27th, I have not behaved with violence. In the 33rd, I have not used evil thoughts, words, or deeds. All of which shows he did not uphold the laws of Maat. So again, when your heart is not balanced on the scale of Maat, you become devoured or cease to exist by the Amit. Oh yeah, and this Amit is a crossbreed creature, and is represented with the crocodile head, a lion's body, and the lower torso of a hippopotamus. And she is a goddess. So for those who say woman is a goddess, you can't leave out this beautiful goddess. Now, the next Pharaoh we have that broke the laws of Maat is Snefru. And he had a pyramid built during his reign. Now when we observe the Palmer stone, during the reign of Snefru, it states, hacking up the land of the Negroes, bringing 7,000 living prisoners and 200,000 large and small kettles. Now let's apply the laws of Maat to see how Snefru broke the very laws he was supposed to uphold. Now it states, hacking up the land of the Negroes. Now the 17th law of Maat states, I have not stolen anyone's land. So he broke that law. So he broke the 17th law. Again, the Palmer Stone states, bringing 7,000 living prisoners and 200,000 large and small cattle. Now the 27th law of Maat states, I have not behaved with violence. Anytime you engage in war or imprison the people is an act of violence. And the 28th law of Maat states, I have not caused disruption of peace. To carry off 7,000 prisoners is a disruption of peace for those people being in prison. Even the 200,000 kettles carried off were disrupted from their peace by the Pharaoh Snefru. So Snefru broke the laws by stating he hacked and destroyed the land of the Negroes, which would be Nubia. And why is the Pharaoh warring with the Nubians from the south, when most of the Pharaohs are said to come from the south? That makes no sense at all. Why would he be imprisoning the very people he come from? See, Africans been killing Africans. Tribal war been going on before foreigners came in. Now, the next Pharaoh to break the laws of Maat is Pepi during the Old Kingdom. He ruled from around 2313 BC to 2279 BC. Now, a lot of these Kemetic cats always say that the Hebrews were illiterate. Well, the campaign of Pepi is going to shed some light on how the Hebrews ended up in that condition prior to coming into Egypt. What I'm going to say, no Kemetic, no Hebrew had made the connection. When we observe the autobiography of Winnie, the elder, it states how Pepi led a campaign into Canaan, where it states, this army returned in peace after it had flattened the land of the sand dwellers. This army returned in peace after it had torn down its forts. This army returned in peace after it had cut down its figs and trees, its figs and vines. This army returned in peace after it had threw fire amongst all its troops. This army returned in peace after it killed its troops, therein many 10,000. So with this verse, you can clearly hear how Pepi destroyed the people and land of those living in Canaan. Now, before I show how Pepi didn't uphold the laws of Maat, let me finish address this whole Hebrew being illiterate nonsense. Now Pepi destroyed the land of Canaan during his reign between 2313 BC to 2279 BC is when these events took place. Now before the Hebrews came into Egypt, they were living in Canaan. And the Hebrews came into Egypt during 1900 BC, around that time, shown on the walls of Kingdom Hotep II. 200 to 300 years after Pepi destroyed their land. See that? So let's put two and two together. When you destroy people's civilization, they become refugees, fleeing from the tyrant king. And at that time, many of the Hebrews, or many of those living in Canaan, migrated into Turkey and Europe, because the tyrant King Pepi attacked from the south, coming into Canaan. While you also had Narmer Sin from Mesopotamia, attacking from the east, coming from Mesopotamia. So when these two tyrant kings invaded, it made no sense for those fleeing to flee in the direction of their enemies. So the only escape they had was north at the time, into Turkey and Europe. And this is exactly what happened. And those that migrated into those regions became the Etruscans, and settled and started rebuilding. And when you compare the Etruscans with the Mesopotamians, the Hebrews, the Babylonians, Assyrians, you're looking at the very same people, the very same nation. Being Shem. So my concept of Shem is not your concept, because I don't deal with the false account of the biblical Noah story. My concept is the 34 ships that landed in India after the flood. And to understand that, go back and look at the flood accounts to see where I'm coming from. So the whole idea of the Hebrews being illiterate will be a result of their land being destroyed by the Egyptian Pharaoh Pepi and the Assyrian king Narmer Sin, prior to the Hebrews coming into Egypt. See that? An example of this would be slavery. When we were made slaves and brought to America, we became nomadic, fleeing, and seeking refuge away from the tyrant, being a European at the time. Being a European. And what did the Europeans say about us when we got here? That we were lazy, illiterate, slow, and that we didn't contribute to civilization. But they didn't look back before slavery, when we had empires, shown in Mali and Timbuktu. See that? So the same way these Kemetic dudes talk about the Hebrews being illiterate, the Europeans said the same thing about us today, right now. See that? Now that that's clear, let me come back to show how Pepi didn't uphold the laws of Maat. Now the autobiography of Winnie the Elder states that his army destroyed the land of the sand dwellers and flattened the land of the sand dwellers. Now when we look at the 17th and 42nd law of Maat, it states, I have not stolen anyone's land. I have not destroyed properties belonging to gods and goddesses. And Pepi surely destroyed the property of the sand dwellers. And the gods and goddesses of that land would be Baal, El, Ashtaroth, Shamash, Dagon. So again, Pepi is guilty of breaking his own laws of Maat. Next it states how Pepi and his army killed the troops, being estimated about 10,000. Now when we observe the fourth law of Maat, it states, I have not slain man or woman, which Pepi and his army confessed on doing. Now the 23rd law of Maat states, I have not terrorized anyone. It is clear that Pepi terrorized these people living in Canaan. And then these Kemetic dudes wonder why the Hyksos came into Egypt with a vengeance for them. So again, Pepi is guilty of all this act against the laws of Maat, the very principle he's supposed to stand upon. Now the 23rd law of Maat states, I have not caused disruption of peace. It is clear that the sand dwellers was living in peace before Pepi came with a campaign and destroyed the land. And it stated that they had forts, they had civilizations in the land of Canaan before Pepi destroyed it, along with Narmer Sin. So again, Pepi is guilty of breaking the 28th law of Maat. Again, the 32nd law of Maat states, I have not worked evil. To kill 10,000 people is beyond evil. And the second law of Maat states, I have not committed robbery with violence. Again and again it's obvious that Pepi did not live up to the laws of Maat. He robbed the land of Canaan, the land of the sand dwellers, with violence and destruction. And these Kemetic dudes wonder why there are no records of the Hebrews when you got such catastrophic destruction and violence taking place in the regions where the Hebrews was living before entering Egypt, by this Pharaoh Pepi the First, along with Narmersid of Mesopotamia, who brought destruction and death to that region. Now let me move on to the next Pharaoh, because I can go all day on Pepi, how he didn't uphold the laws of Maat. And remember, when you don't uphold the laws of Maat, if you are unbalanced, that Ammon is waiting right there to devour that spirit. Now let me move on to Amos, the one responsible for expelling the Hebrews out of Egypt, being the biblical Exodus. Now in the biography of Amos, son of Abana, it states how Amos was engaged in battle with the Hyksos and Nubians. Now here is just one passage out of many to show he did not uphold Maat. He did not uphold Maat as well. Here it states, when His Majesty had slain the nomads of Asia, he sailed south to Kent Hen Nephar to destroy the Nubian bowmen. His Majesty made a great slaughter among them and brought spoils from there. Again, check it. If Amos the First and those with him doing this destruction are said to be from the south, why would he be killing off the Nubians, his own people? See that? Africans been killing Africans. Now when we observe the fourth law of Maat, it states, I have not slain men or women. And it is quite clear that Amos and his army slaughtered the Nubians and the Asiatics. And the third law of Maat states, I have not stolen. And in the passage it states how Amos and his army brought spoils from Nubia. So again, Amos was guilty of breaking the laws of Maat, the very laws he's supposed to stand upon. Next we move to Ramses II and the Battle of Kadesh, 1273 BC, where Ramses II led a campaign into Canaan, Megiddo, the battle with the Hittites. And it is obvious he broke the laws of Maat as well. So this is just several pharaohs out of many more that did not uphold the laws of Maat. So regardless of the temples, regardless of the pyramids, regardless of the arts, if you didn't live up to the laws of Maat, all that is irrelevant. It matters not. The achievement of the Egyptians was not building temples and pyramids, but the upkeeping of the laws of Maat in order to be one in the presence of Osiris and the Neterus after death. As proven in the Papyrus of Enna, where it states, the Papyrus of Enna, from the speech of Enna, behold, I'm in the presence, O Lord, of Amentet, the west. There is no sin in my body. I have not spoken that which is not true knowingly, nor have I done anything with a false heart. Now here's the catch. Here's the key point. Grant though that I may be like unto those favored ones who are in thy following, and that I may be an Osiris greatly favored of the beautiful God, and beloved of the Lord of the two lands. I who am a veritable royal scribe, who loveth thee, Enna, whose word is true before the God Osiris. See that? So this is the whole matter right here. To be one in the presence of Osiris and the Neterus after death. So this ain't got nothing to do with any earthly achievements, nothing about building up temples and pyramids. It's only about upholding the laws of Maat until your physical death to be one with the Neterus after death. That's the whole objective of the very existence of the Nile Valley civilization at that particular time, under that particular deity. Now let me put the nail in the coffin and seal it with the YAHUWAH to show that this is all inspired by Osiris the False, the fallen angel. Now I did a series years ago called The Wars Against Jehovah, where I expounded on Egypt. And I explained how an angel by the name of Anu-Hassad, style Lord God and Dias, overtook the lower heavens and earth for his own possession. And Osiris the False, Baal, and as to all came out of this false god's heavenly kingdom, and were subservient Lord gods to Anu-Hassad, style Lord God and Dias. And Osiris' region and dominion was Africa. And Baal's region and dominion was Canaan, and Hellas, and Europe. And Ashtaroth's region and dominion was Persia. And to get further detail on this, you can check out the wars against Jehovah. I'll leave the link below. Now, based off the timetables of prophecy, this time period of the Nile Valley civilization started within the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of mortals, called the Ark of Speda, from 3953 BC to 1556 BC. Is the length of the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of mortals, 2,400 years. And it is the same time period that all the Egyptian and Sumerian gods came on the scene. And this is when Anu-Hassad-style Lord God Osiris began his conquest and taking over the lower heavens and earth, apportioning the different regions to his subservient Lord gods and goddesses. And the purpose of Osiris the false, like the other fallen angels, was to capture the spirits of mortals at the time of death who accepted the spiritual belief system, to make them subservient slaves of the heavenly kingdom of that false god, or fallen angel, or fallen ancestor.
Verse 7. Arabian had 4 kinds of people within her regions: the Ahuans, the Lycians, the Ians, and the brown burrowers in the ground, with long noses and projecting mouths, very strong, whose grip of the hand could break a horse's leg. The brown people, though harmless, were naked, living mostly on fish and worms and bugs and roots, and they inhabited the regions of the great river Tua, or Nile. Over these people, to subdue them and destroy them, Osiris allotted his great angel general Egypt, servant of Darius. Egypt called the region of his allotment after himself, Egypt, the same which is corruptly called Egypt to this day.
So here Osiris had plans to subdue the people of Arabia, Africa, for his own personal gain and glory, to start populating his own heavenly kingdom. Now the pyramid was influenced by Osiris the False during the Old Kingdom. And it is the pyramid text that we get the whole spiritual belief system from.
Osiris said, "Thou shalt build the temple of astronomy, and dedicate it unto Osiris, Savior of men and angels, God of heaven and earth. And it shall be built square with the world, east, west, north, and south. And the observing line shall be with the apex of the Hydan vortex, which lieth in the median lane of the variations of the North Star." Verse 27. "In the form of a pyramid shalt thou build it. Measure for measure will I show thee every part." Verse 28. "And thou shalt provide such thickness of walls that no sound nor heat nor cold can enter therein. And yet thou shalt provide chambers within, suitable for thyself and thy chiefs, and thy friends who are also adepts. For I have also provided the earth unto heaven, and heaven unto the earth. And my angels shall come and dwell for a season on earth, and my earthborn shall go and dwell for a season in heaven. Yea, they shall come to me on my throne, and behold the glories I have prepared for them." Verse 29. "Nor shall my temple be exclusive, but open unto all who will pursue the philosophies of the earth and heaven. For which reason thou shalt build it with the sun, moon, and stars. And it shall be a testimony unto the nations of the earth that thou art the highest of all mortals, and first founder of everlasting life in the flesh. For as the angels of heaven can return to the earth and take upon themselves corporeal bodies for a season, so shalt thou master thy own flesh to keep it as thou wilt. For this is the end and glory for which I created man on earth."
And the purpose of the pyramids were for the Egyptian adepts, the priests, to visit the heavenly kingdoms of Osiris in spirit, for them to be reassured in their faith and belief of that false god Osiris.
Verse 5. "Now in the 2nd month after the temple was complete, Thutmose the king, having put the affairs of his kingdom in order, went into the holy chamber, and thence ascended into the chamber of life and death, leaving the 4 chief priests in the holy chamber. And Thutmose cast himself in death, dormancy, by swallowing his tongue, whereupon the priests closed the entrance and sealed the king within." Verse 6. "Osiris through his servant god Egypt said unto the priests, One alone shall remain, in quarter watch shall ye dwell within the holy chamber, and I will remain also. And the priests cast lots, and divided the watch in 6 hours each, unto each day. And Osiris sent Baal to the spirit of Thutmose, and took him to Ago-Adin, Osiris' heavenly place, showing the spirit unto the glory of the throne, saying, Behold, the God of gods. Thutmose said, It is a great glory Lo, my eyes are blinded by the light of the Lord my God. After this, Baal took the soul of Thutmose into 1,000 heavenly places in Osiris' kingdom, and showed him the glories thereof.
See that? Now all false gods go through the same fall at the end of their reign, as I have been saying all throughout the vids. That all false gods, including this false Osiris heavenly kingdom and earthly kingdom, end up in warfare, anarchy, and rioting. All the dynastic wars and the Sumerian wars were influenced by these fallen angels of old, of the 23rd archetype. In those regions, as stated in the Book of Wars against Jehovah, chapter 54, verse 16, 17, and 20, it states, verse 16, so anarchy began to reign in Haiti. Order was broken down. Warfare was divided in 1,000 ways. Neither angels nor gods could more discover what this war or that war was about, except to inflict torment on others. And so great was the conflict that over more than half the earth, all of the lower heavens, was but one continuous succession of knots and hells, to inflict pain and disorder and destruction. Was the work of 20,000 million angels in darkness, war, 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 hell, hell, hell. Verse 17, and now Alice, over all the earth, where war had revealed hundreds of years, were thousands of millions of spirits in chaos, not knowing in fact they were in the spirit world. But still battling against all who came along, to the left and to the right, before and behind, screaming, bawling with madness, striking in madness, unceasing agony, in an unending nightmare of madness. Verse 20. And these in remembrance of Osiris hated the name, and treachery went to his heavenly kingdom, followed by thousands of millions of angels. With long continued slavery, roused for the deeds of vengeance, forth into his capital, Ago-Adim. That's the name of Osiris' false heavenly kingdom. They rushed, beating down the pillars of fire and high archways, and rushing into the throne of Osiris, seized him and his vice gods and high marshals, and dragged them off and cast them into foul-smelling hells, hideous, with the wail and roaring of maniacs, and tantalizing jugers. Jugers are spirits of darkness. Spirits of darkness are evil people who crossed over and still practice evil in spirit. With kicks and blows and pounding, and covered them up in foul darkness, heaped deep, smothering and suffocating gases. Now this is the result of Osiris' heavenly kingdom in the end. Likewise with all false gods, their kingdoms always end up in anarchy and rioting. Now, when these conditions of hell take place for hundreds of years, and this is when we come in, those in service to the Creator, to clean up your childish acts, as stated in the Book of Wars against Jehovah, chapter 55, verse 5 through 8, it states, verse 5, the which was beneficial to Jehovah's angels in assisting them to deliver hosts of the chaotic spirits, whose mortal part fell in dread war. For such was the labor of true God in Cryoshabah, son of Jehovah, and of his host of upraised angels, to gather in from every quarter of the earth and her heavens the fallen victims of the self-gods, to restore them to reasoning, and to happier and holier scenes, and to teach them righteousness and good works. Verse 6, Jehovah said to God, his son, because one man cannot lift up the whole world, he shall not grieve, nor cease doing what he can, for his glory lies in exerting himself to the full. Verse 7, because the self-gods have come against thee, they are against me also, because they have espoused to be creators, thus proclaiming themselves for their own glory, they shall have their fill. Before these times, the false gods were content to proclaim their own names. But lo and behold, they have made the name the Lord God as the Creator, and set him up as a man on a throne to worship. Verse 8, and Tian, Sudga, and Osiris too, all of woman born, and knowing my breath upon them. Sufficient is it for them, my son, to gather in the afflicted and distressed, and restore them, and deliver them in light and truth. Keep thou thy schools and colleges in heaven, and thy nurses and hospitals, and factories, and thy fleets of swift Ativanes, and Aravangas, those are spacecraft. And send thou thy faithful volunteers, and make the afflicted to rejoice, and hold up their heads in great joy. See that? And the angels in service to the Creator, this is their job, to clear away the hells and knots, removing thousands and millions of chaotic spirits to clean the ground and restore them and get them back into schools and education to continue to progress throughout the three heavenly realms belonging to the earth, in order to rise into the Etherian realm outside the earth and its atmosphere at the harvest time, which is every 400 years, a sub-cycle. Now let me give you a rundown of the true operation and the true scope of how things are done. The purpose is to graduate off the planet after we die, progressing in the three atmospheric planes belonging to the earth. Every 400 years is called a harvest, which are the times when angels or ancestors move up in the ranks and grades of the heavenly kingdoms belonging to the earth. So after your physical death, you begin the progression in the first heaven. And once you graduate from the first heaven at the harvest time, which is every 400 years, you rise up into the second heaven belonging to the earth. And when you graduate from the second heaven belonging to the earth at the harvest time, which is every 400 years, you move up to the third heaven belonging to the earth. And when you graduate from the third heaven belonging to the earth at the harvest time, every 400 years, that's when the Etherian gods and goddesses come down in a spacecraft within the third heaven to receive the ancestors or angels now capable of entering the Etherian realms existing outside of the earth and its atmosphere. And this can be accomplished within 1200 years after your physical death if you're persistent in the rates and grades. Now, the false gods hinder that progression by setting up a heavenly kingdom within the first or second heaven, proclaimed as the OAHSPE. And then they begin to establish doctrine and inspire mortals with that doctrine in order to make them subjects for his heavenly kingdom. And these false gods may rule or reign up to 1,000 to 2,000 years. So just imagine generation after generations of mortals dying in the spiritual belief system, being Osiris in this particular. And the spirits harvested to that heavenly kingdom can number in the billions over a span of 1,000 years. But no false god can rule no longer than 3,000 years, because that's the limit. Because at the beginning of every 3,000 years is when the Etherian gods and goddesses come down from the Etherian kingdoms existing outside of the earth and its atmosphere to assist true God within the third heaven of the earth and its atmosphere in managing the kingdom and removing the false god from rulership. This is the real scope and cosmic order of things. So Osiris, along with Baal, Ashtar, El, Dagon, all the Egyptian and Sumerian gods were fallen angels within the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of mortals. From 3953 BC to 1553 BC, within that time period. And the next arc cycle after that, the 24th arc cycle, called the Arc of Bond, and the length of this arc cycle is from 1553 BC to 1848 AD present time. The false god that rose up were Lu among the false Christ, who established Christianity, Gabriel, the false Allah, who established Islam, Kabbalistes, the false Buddha, who established Buddhism, and Inusa, the false Brahma, who established Brahmanism. These are the false gods of today, just like Osiris, Baal, and Ashtaroth were the false gods of old. See that? And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings. Shalom.